My name is Jessica Evans, 29 years old, and last week my mother called me crying. For the first time in my life, her voice fragile and frightened, asking me to come home because early dementia has begun to erase her days and she needs someone to stay. She does not realize that the sound of her fear carried me back to the moment my own life collapsed. 2 years ago, I sat alone in a narrow hospital corridor in New York, staring at a pale green wall while a thin report in my hands confirmed stage 3 breast cancer, aggressive and already moving fast. Dr. Brooks spoke plainly, no comfort, no delay, only treatment starting immediately. I walked out numb, my legs unsteady, my hands shaking as I called the one person I still believed would protect me when everything fell apart. My mother answered quickly, distracted, hurried, surrounded by plans that had nothing to do with survival. I whispered that I had cancer, that I was terrified, that I did not know how to face what was coming. A brief silence opened in the line, just long enough for hope to rise, then disappeared forever. She told me they could not deal with this right now because my sister Samantha's wedding was coming and everything depended on perfect timing. She spoke about invitations, venues, fittings, and guests, while I watched a nurse push a wheelchair past me, and a man squeeze his wife's hand, as if touch alone could keep her alive. My mother said I was strong, independent, and always able to manage on my own. Today I am cancer-free, and finally rebuilt my work, my home, and my sense of self. Now the same woman who chose a wedding over my survival asks me. That Wednesday started like any other. I was deep in a fintech campaign at the agency, Slack notifications pinging relentlessly, fingers flying across my keyboard in the creative flow I lived for. The office smelled like fresh coffee and ambition, exposed brick walls, succulents everywhere, that overpriced espresso machine humming in the corner. I'd clawed my way up from junior marketer to handling major pitches in 3 years. No handouts, just late nights and stubborn determination. My Brooklyn apartment waited for me at the end of the day, small, one-bedroom, nothing fancy, but every inch mine. Routine kept me steady. Coffee at 6:30 sharp, gym 3 times a week to burn off the stress, dinner with Stephanie on Thursdays where we talked about everything except family. Life felt solid, earned. Then my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, deadline breathing down my neck, but I answered. The nurse's voice was gentle, but clinical biopsy results were in. Dr. Brooks wanted me in tomorrow at 8 o'clock. My Starbucks sat untouched the rest of the afternoon. I didn't taste dinner that night. I kept thinking, they don't call you in for good news. The next morning, Dr. Brooks was direct. Stage 3 breast cancer, aggressive tumor. Chemotherapy starts immediately. I sat there in the sterile room with its diplomas and fake peace lily, feeling my body float above the chair like I was watching a stranger hear the news. When she asked if I had someone to drive me home, I thought of Stephanie, but she was on shift. Coworkers were colleagues, not close. Without planning it, I said I'd call my mother. My mother, Mary Evans, was the center of our family universe. Quiet authority. Everyone orbited her decisions. My father, John, supported without question. My sister, Samantha, 2 years older, was the one who got the full ride to college, the big parties for every promotion, the constant praise as the perfect girl. I was the independent one, the one Mom always said would figure things out alone. Growing up, when Samantha got straight A's, Mom threw a dinner. When I made honor roll, she said, "Good job, keep it up." Samantha's engagement announcement got champagne. My first big promotion got a thumbs up emoji from Mom. The hierarchy was clear, unspoken, and I'd learned to live with it. I found a bench in the hallway, hands shaking so badly it took 3 tries to dial. The phone rang twice. "Mom, it's me." "Jessica, what is it?" "I'm in the middle of something." I swallowed hard. "I just came from the doctor. I have cancer, stage 3. I'm really scared." Silence stretched. I could hear her breathing, then my father's voice in the background asking who was calling. "Mom." More silence. Then she sighed. "Jessica, listen. We can't deal with this right now. Samantha's wedding is in 4 months. There's so much to do. Invitations, venues, the dress. You understand?" I couldn't speak. "You're strong." she continued, voice hardening the way it did when she wanted the conversation over. You've always been independent. You'll figure it out. The line went dead. I sat there stunned, the hospital sounds fading around me. Daughters are supposed to call their mothers when the world falls apart. I'd done that, and she'd chosen a wedding instead. On my first day of chemotherapy, I drove alone to the hospital in Manhattan. The first chemo session began with me driving alone across the Manhattan Bridge, gripping the wheel to keep my hands steady. The infusion center was on the 4th floor, a semicircle of reclining chairs, each with an IV stand and a small television arm. It looked almost peaceful if you ignored the antiseptic smell and the quiet beeps. I checked in, signed forms, sat in chair 7. The nurse Nancy, with kind eyes and reading glasses on a beaded chain, accessed my port and started the drip. The poison felt cold at first, then heavy, spreading through my veins like ice water turning to fire. Nausea hit in waves within an hour. I pressed the call button once, but Nancy was already there with anti-nausea meds and a cool cloth. She asked if anyone was coming. I shook my head. She squeezed my shoulder and said it was okay to be scared. Most people brought someone. I looked around. Chair 3 had a husband holding his wife's hand, whispering jokes that made her smile through the drip. Chair 5 had a teenager whose mother read Harry Potter aloud. Chair 9 had an elderly man whose daughter spooned homemade soup from a thermos. Chair 7 had me. Alone. I stared at the ceiling tiles and thought, why don't I deserve that? They have family. I have a folder of screenshots. The fear was constant, not just the cancer, but the loneliness that made every ache sharper. I swallowed it down so I wouldn't burden anyone who wasn't there anyway. Hair started thinning after the second round. By the third, it came out in clumps in the shower. I stopped looking in mirrors. Between sessions, the nausea lingered. Exhaustion settled in my bones, but I kept working remotely when I could, forcing focus through the fog. One afternoon during my 4th cycle, I dragged myself to a support group in the hospital basement. That's where I met Stephanie. She sat next to me in the empty chair, curly hair in a practical ponytail, direct eye contact that didn't allow lies. You're always alone, she said simply. Not pity, just observation. I shrugged. My family is busy. She nodded like she'd heard it before. When's your last treatment? November. She told me the hospital kept visitor logs for security, but patients could request copies later. Some people want the record, she said, for memories or proof. I didn't understand why she told me then, but I filed it away. A few days later, I requested my first copy. Empty column after empty column. None, none, none. 36 visits. 0 names. I texted my mother my chemo schedule once, hoping. She replied 6 hours later. Peonies or roses for centerpieces? What do you think? I stared at the message until the screen went dark. To pay the bills, my insurance didn't cover $47,000 out of pocket. I sold my laptop, backup, canceled subscriptions, stopped buying anything not on sale. When that wasn't enough, I took a personal loan at 14% interest. The payments stretched years ahead, but at least I'd be alive to make them. Then one day, during a cycle break, my phone lit up with a text from Samantha. Wedding planning is crazy fun. Wish you were here. Oh wait, you're busy, right? I read it twice. The sarcasm stung worse than the nausea. I didn't reply, I just saved it to the folder. Between chemo cycles, the exhaustion never fully lifted, but I pushed through. And somewhere in those months, the wedding date arrived. The wedding date arrived in the middle of my chemo cycle. My father called a week before. His voice was clipped businesslike. Jessica, about Samantha's wedding. We've talked it over. It's best if you don't come. I waited for the reason. You look unwell. You've lost weight. Your hair. It's noticeable. We don't want anything to overshadow her day. Anything meaning me. Overshadow, meaning remind everyone the bride's sister was fighting for her life while they celebrated. I said I understood. I did. I understood exactly what kind of family I had. The wedding happened in Long Island without me. I saw the photos on Facebook because my mother posted them publicly. Her in champagne silk dabbing her eyes. My father in a Brooks Brothers suit beaming. Samantha and Jacob golden and glowing surrounded by 150 guests who had no idea the bride's sister existed. The caption read, "Happiest day of our family's life." 247 likes. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I screenshot the post and added it to the folder labeled Family. 3 weeks after the wedding, the medical bills started arriving in earnest. My insurance covered a lot. Thank God for the company's plan, but a lot isn't everything. After deductibles, copays, and medications considered non-formulary, I was staring at $47,000. I had already sold what I could. Now I asked my mother for help. I typed the message carefully. "Mom, the bills are more than I can handle. Could I borrow some money? I'll pay it back." I stared at the screen for 20 minutes before hitting send. Her reply came 2 hours later. "We just paid $80,000 for Samantha's wedding. We don't have extra right now. Have you looked into a personal loan? Your credit should be good enough." "No, sorry. No, I wish we could. No, we love you. Just practical advice." I read it 3 times, waiting for something more. Nothing came. That night, the worst hit. Round 4 had built up in my system. My oncologist had warned the effects accumulated each cycle harder. But nothing prepares you for lying on your bathroom floor at 2 in the morning, shaking so hard your teeth chatter, body trying to reject every cell. Hair didn't fall gradually anymore. It came out all at once. Handfuls on the pillow, strands clogging the drain. The hair I'd had since birth. The hair my mother used to braid when I was small. I crawled to the toilet and vomited until nothing was left. Then I kept vomiting dry heaves. At 2:47 I called my mother. The phone rang 8 times before voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. At 3:15 I texted Stephanie. "I think I need help." She showed up 40 minutes later, still in scrubs from a late shift. She didn't say anything. She just sat on the bathroom floor with me, held back what was left of my hair, and stayed until the sun came up. My mother called back at 10:23. "Sweetie, you called last night. I had my phone on silent. Samantha and I were at the spa, post-wedding stress relief. You know how it is." A pause. "What did you need?" I looked at Stephanie making tea in my tiny kitchen, then at the bald patches in the mirror. "Nothing, Mom. It was nothing." "Oh, good. Call anytime. Love you." She hung up. I know many of you watching might be nodding right now because you felt that same abandonment when you needed them most. If this story is touching you, please share your thoughts in the comments. It's a way for us to get through it together. 2 years later, Dr. Brooks said no evidence of disease. 2 years later, Dr. Brooks reviewed the scans and said, "You did it. No evidence of disease." I walked out of her office and cried in the parking garage for an hour. Not sad tears, not even happy ones, just pure release. 2 years of holding my breath, and finally I could exhale. The clarity that came from facing mortality head-on changed everything. My boss, Thomas Reed, had kept my position open during treatment, let me work remotely when I could manage it, never once made me feel like a burden. "You're talented," he said when I thanked him. "Talent is worth waiting for." That respect turned into a promotion to creative manager. I started mentoring juniors, guiding them through tight deadlines and creative blocks the way no one had guided me. I sold my Brooklyn apartment and bought a condo in the Upper East Side with a window overlooking the Hudson. Nothing extravagant, but the light was better, and the Monstera plant that had somehow survived everything came with me. It thrived in the new space. To mark 1 year in remission, I bought myself a navy cashmere scarf, the most expensive thing I'd ever owned that wasn't a medical bill. Stephanie and I grew closer than ever. Dinner every Thursday became sacred. She felt less like a friend and more like the sister I'd always wanted. I started dating Daniel, a high school history teacher with kind eyes and a terrible sense of humor. He knew about the cancer, the family, the ways I'd been broken and rebuilt. He didn't try to fix me. He just showed up consistently, the way people who love you are supposed to. My family and I exchanged the bare minimum. A Happy New Year text, a birthday emoji, nothing real, nothing that mattered. I'd made a fragile truce with it, or at least I told myself I had. One evening I opened the folder again. The screenshots, the call logs, the visitor records with that devastating column repeating none. I scrolled through 2 years of evidence. Texts ignored, calls unanswered. A hospital log that proved no one came. Anger flashed hot and quick. This time they won't rewrite the truth. This time I'll prepare for gaslighting. I closed the folder and put it away, but the weight stayed. Then my mother called on a Thursday evening. I was making dinner. Salmon with roasted vegetables because I'd learned to cook precisely during treatment when I needed to control exactly what went into my body. The phone lit up with her name. I stared at it. The salmon sizzled in the pan. The phone kept buzzing. My first instinct was to let it go to voicemail, but curiosity, or the part of me that still hoped, made me answer. Jessica. Her voice was thin, uncertain. My mother had never sounded uncertain in her life. I need to see you. There's something I have to tell you. I waited. I have early dementia. The doctors say it's progressing. I need my family around me right now. Dinner Sunday at the house. Your father, Samantha Jacob. We need to discuss the future. The future? As if I hadn't spent 2 years building one without them. I heard myself say, okay, I'll be there. After I hung up, I realized in that entire conversation, she never once asked if I was okay. She didn't know if I'd survived. She just needed something. And I was the logical choice. The daughter without a husband, without children. The one always expected to sacrifice. I touched the cashmere scarf hanging by the door. My reminder of what I'd survived. Then I called Stephanie. You're going, she asked carefully. I need to know what they want. And I need them to look me in the eye when they ask for it. I paused. This time, I'm not going unprepared. This time, I'm not going unprepared. The call came on a Thursday evening while I was making dinner. Salmon with roasted vegetables because control over food had become a habit after treatment. The phone lit up with my mother's name. I answered. Jessica. Her voice trembled thin and uncertain. My mother had never sounded uncertain before. I have early dementia. The doctors say it's progressing faster than expected. I need my family around me right now. She paused as if waiting for sympathy. None came. Dinner Sunday at the house in Long Island. Your father, Samantha Jacob. We need to discuss the future. The future. As if I hadn't spent 2 years constructing one brick by brick without them. In the entire conversation, she never asked how I was. No mention of remission. No curiosity about the life I'd rebuilt. Just need. I said I'd come. After hanging up, I sat at the table staring at the cooling plate. Not regret, but need. Because I'm the one without a life to hold. The one without husband or children. The logical choice for caregiver. I researched the disease that night. Tremors, stiffness, slow loss of control, long-term patience required. Eventually difficulty walking, talking, swallowing. It demands someone willing to put their life on hold. And suddenly the invitation made sense. Not because she missed me, not because she regretted anything, because she needed help. And I was the obvious solution. I called Stephanie. You're going, she asked, her voice careful. I need to face them. I need them to say it to my face. She was quiet for a moment. You survived cancer. You can survive dinner, but protect yourself. Prepare for gaslighting. Bring the folder. Remind yourself of the truth if they try to rewrite it. I hadn't opened the folder in months. That night I sat on my bed and scrolled through it again. 2 years of evidence. Texts ignored, calls unanswered. Visitor logs with that empty column repeating none. Each entry a small proof that what happened was real, not exaggeration, not misunderstanding, fact. I dressed carefully for Sunday, not to impress but to armor. Black slacks, cream silk blouse, the navy cashmere scarf draped over my shoulders, a reminder of survival. My purse held my phone with the folder ready. I looked in the mirror and saw someone who had built a life without them, someone who no longer needed their approval. The drive to Long Island took 40 minutes. The house was exactly as I remembered. White colonial with black shutters, 3 stories, 5 bedrooms. A lawn so manicured it looked artificial. The house I'd grown up in but never truly belonged to. The house where I'd learned love came with conditions. I sat in my car for 5 minutes watching warm light spill from the dining room windows. Figures moved inside. My mother probably setting the table with the good china, the Waterford crystal, the sterling flatware, all the props of a family that looked perfect from the outside. I grabbed my purse. Inside it, my phone waited. The truth waited. I walked up the brick pathway to the front door. The doorbell chimed the same 3 notes it always had. My mother answered, her face arranged in an expression I couldn't quite read. Relief, guilt, something else. Jessica. She pulled me into a hug before I could react. She smelled like Chanel No. 5, the same perfume she'd worn to every milestone that didn't include me. You look wonderful. Come in. I stepped inside and braced myself. On Sunday, I drove to Long Island, the White House with black shutters. A week later, Mary's mom called for an update, and the name flashing across my phone screen felt like a delayed echo of the night I had walked out of that house, a softer knock after a slammed door, and for a long second I simply watched it ring, letting the vibration hum against the kitchen counter, while I reminded myself that I was not obligated to answer just because someone finally remembered my number. When I did pick up, her voice sounded smaller than I remembered, thinner, stripped of the certainty that had filled the dining room under the chandelier. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't say my name the way someone says it when they are glad you exist. She went straight to what she needed. She said, your mother has been very upset this week. She isn't eating much. She keeps forgetting where she put things, and your father is exhausted, and everyone is worried. And we were hoping you could tell us what you've decided. The word decided sat between us like a verdict already written. I closed my eyes and leaned against the counter watching sunlight slide across the floor, and for the first time in years I noticed how quiet my apartment was, how steady, how mine. I told her I hadn't decided anything because there was nothing left to decide. I told her I had already given my answer. There was a pause on the line, followed by a soft, practiced sigh, the kind meant to pull sympathy from whoever was listening. She said, families make mistakes, sweetheart, and when people get older, they deserve understanding. I let her finish, because interrupting would only turn the conversation into another performance, and I was done auditioning for the role of the forgiving daughter. When she finally stopped, I said calmly that understanding does not erase patterns, and love does not grow out of obligation, and I was no longer willing to build my life around emergencies that only mattered when they belonged to someone else. She tried again, gentler this time, telling me my mother cries every night and keeps saying she never meant to hurt me, and that illness changes people, and that this situation is different. I told her it wasn't different at all. I told her what was different was me. 2 years ago, I had learned how fragile a body could be, and how loud silence could become when you needed someone, and no one came, and I had learned that survival does not automatically make you generous with your future. She asked what she should tell my mother. I considered that question carefully because it was the first honest one anyone in that family had asked me. I said she could tell her that I hope she finds the support she needs, and that I genuinely wish her peace and good care, and that none of that requires me to move back into a house where my absence had once been so easy to accept. I could hear her breathing on the other end, slow and heavy, as if she were weighing whether I could still be persuaded. She said your mother was always proud of you, you know. I didn't laugh. I didn't argue. I simply said pride that only appears after loss is not something I can build a relationship on. Another pause longer this time, and then she said very quietly, "I'll let her know you won't be coming." There was relief in her voice, not for me, but for the clarity of it, and I realized that what people often want is not reconciliation, but resolution, not healing, but an answer they can organize their plans around. Before she hung up, she said she hoped I would change my mind. I said I hoped they would change their expectations. When the call ended, I stood there for a moment with the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the hollow tone, and I felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't known was still tight. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel cruel. I felt accurate. I made myself tea and carried the mug to the window and watched a couple walk their dog past my building, laughing about something small and unimportant. And I thought about how ordinary happiness is built out of consistency, not sacrifice, and how love that only shows up when it is desperate is not the kind of love that can hold you through a long, quiet life. My mother would continue to be afraid. My father would continue to be tired. My sister would continue to be protected by the same invisible cushion she had always landed on. None of that was new. What was new was that for the first time my future was not being drafted at a table where my voice only mattered when it was convenient. I set the mug down, opened my laptop, and returned to the work I had chosen in the space I had earned inside a life that finally belonged to me. 1 week after I walked out, my mother called again. Her voice was tired, older than I remembered. "Jessica, I wanted you to know what's happening here." I listened without interrupting. Samantha had taken leave from work to care for her. She missed an important project. Her supervisor wasn't happy. There was talk she might be passed over for the promotion she'd been expecting. With the baby coming and no full-time caregiver affordable, they couldn't afford alternatives. My father refused nursing home. Samantha was doing it because she had no choice. Jacob was stressed. They fought constantly. He said he didn't sign up for this. The financial strain was immediate, debt mounting, savings draining. Dementia care demanded nearly 31 hours a week on average. Working caregivers often became isolated, 25% reported severe loneliness. The divorce rate in caregiver families ran higher than average. Samantha was starting to understand why I'd left. My mother paused. "Will you come back to help?" "No," I said. "I hope Samantha figures it out." I hung up. I didn't feel guilt, only grief for what could have been if things had been different. But grief isn't obligation. I blocked their numbers. Calls, texts, everything. No more fragile truces. No more bare minimum emojis. Complete cut. I was promoted again 6 months later. Creative director now, with an office overlooking the skyline. The Monstera plant had made the journey and thrived in the better light. I hired 2 juniors and discovered I loved mentoring, guiding them through challenges I'd faced alone. Dinner with Stephanie stayed Thursday tradition. She'd started dating someone too, a surgeon from her hospital who laughed at her bad jokes. We were building a life, the family we chose. Daniel and I grew closer. He showed up consistently. No drama, no conditions, just presence. The way love should be. I kept the folder on my phone, not to look at often, but as proof that feelings can be denied, documents cannot. Records protect truth when others try to rewrite it. Forgiveness is a process, not a performance. You don't have to forgive on anyone's timeline but your own. And if you never forgive, that's your right too. Nobody gets to tell you how to heal. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're self-respect. You don't owe sacrifice to people who weren't there when you needed them. Family isn't blood. Family is who shows up when you need them most. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who never loved you back. I'm Jessica, 31 years old cancer survivor. I've learned something that took way too long to understand. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to say no to people who only reach out when they need something. You are allowed to thrive without them. If you're watching this, and you've made it this far, maybe you're in the position I was 2 years ago. Maybe you're wondering if it's your fault. If you were different, better, easier, less needy, they would show up. I spent 28 years believing that. Then I got cancer and learned the truth. Some people will not show up no matter what you do. You could be dying, literally dying, and they would still find something more important. That's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of theirs. Here's what I want you to know. You don't owe anyone your life. Keeping records isn't revenge, it's protecting your truth. Boundaries are self-respect. Forgiveness is yours to give or withhold. And if this story resonated with you, I realize many people may have gone through setting boundaries like that, and the outcome often changes everything. If this story stirs something in you, feel free to share gently in the comments so we can reflect together. Take care of yourself, really. Thank you all for taking the time to watch the video. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to leave a comment, sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos.